welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, 18 Hours special initiative that celebrates the undying entrepreneurial spirit of micro, small and medium enterprises. On the show today, on our Insights segment, we'll bring you a conversation with the Startup Center, and on Bright Sparks tonight, we're featuring jumping heights and only 2 feet. If I were to ask you what is most critical for an entrepreneur to succeed in today's day and age, technology will probably come in a close second to finance. Helping startups leverage technology to grow and solve what they term our real-world challenges is Chennai-based the Startup Center, which has a host of big names that it has invested in. I spoke with Vijay Anand, the founder of this incubator, earlier. Take a listen. Let me kick this conversation off then by asking you, what is the top advice that you would have for our viewers, for entrepreneurs, when it comes to scaling up?
I think there are 3 things that you need to have in place, right? I think you need to be very clear about the problem that you're trying to solve. I see a lot of entrepreneurs, especially coming straight out of college, they understand that they want to basically be an entrepreneur and they want to start up, because right now there's a fair bit of hype around it, but they don't seem to be very clear about what they want to do. I think second thing you need to have is a very, very clear value proposition in terms of whom you're catering this to. And I think the third part is you need to have a great team in place. And I think those are the fundamentals. I think all the other things basically start falling in place very quickly.
Please talk to us about Startup Center.
So we've been doing this since 2011 now. So we're an organization which basically does 2 things. There's a fair bit of awareness building that is required when it comes to entrepreneurship in India. So we do a lot of those, right? We do a lot of community meets and things like that. We also have a part where we actually incubate and accelerate startups.
So what kind of companies do you look at incubating? And the reason I'm asking you this is, I'm sure you get a lot of proposals. What makes you decide to go with one company versus another?
So we still see a lot of e-commerce related companies, which we are not really quite excited about anymore, because I think that opportunity is kind of passing away. We do require like companies that essentially use technology in terms of targeting a fairly large market. For countries like India, I think that's a great opportunity.
I was reading a recent report which said that going forward, almost 50% of all financial transactions will be through, for example, the mobile wallet. Do you see enough entrepreneurs who understand the power of technology, who are using technology in their own businesses? And how do you see fintech as a product, as a proposition, as an idea really growing?
It's good. So most of the time when I'm looking at companies in the fintech space, the thing that I'm looking at is that, hey, has the entrepreneur basically done a little bit of research on what is already existing there? And I think the second bit is that you have to understand that it's very, very regulatory driven, right? So I meet a lot of entrepreneurs who basically say, you know what, we'll collect all the cash, we'll keep it in our bank account. And I ask them that, you need to have an NBFC license, and they're not quite aware about it. So I think there is probably a work that is required from our part as well. So some of the times when we actually start working on fintech, we do disseminate some of this information saying that if you want to work on this spaces, these are all the background check that you need to do, because I think it's very hard to find this information right now.
You're talking about the regulatory environment.
Yeah.
As it exists right now, are you happy with it being a conducive environment for the startup community, for entrepreneurs? The government, of course, has, after a bit of time, come out with a definition for the startups. But do you think that it is an enabling environment? And if not, what else would you like to see for the entrepreneurial community?
I think there is still some ways to go. I think compared to 10, 12 years ago, which is when I started working with entrepreneurs in this country, we have improved a lot. We've come a long way since then, right? But I think there is still a long way to go in terms of all the way from trying to register a company, trying to get a name that you want. I think the friction actually starts right then and there, right? Because we end up registering companies every month, I still keep getting companies coming back and saying, why do I need to put some random solutions and something like that in my name, which is not really required at all, right? So I think that the entrepreneur kind of starts feeling that there is a little bit of lethargy in the system. It's really not efficient right then and there itself. So probably we need to start working on systems right there. I
want to go back to the question on financing. On the Leaders of Tomorrow, we have a call-in show, and a majority of the questions that come in, everyone asks us, how do we go about raising funds? Do we go to the banks? Do we go to the venture capitalists? And how do we make ourselves more investment ready? What advice would you have?
First thing you need to do is essentially clean up the company corporate structure, right? A lot of entrepreneurs, especially if you've been running your company for a while, the structure ends up being a little bit entangled. I know entrepreneurs that we have whom we met, it's usually a single founder, and I ask him, so who's the other director? And he says, it's my mom, right? And you have to ask him, okay, so who's the other person that we're going to officially bring on board? Because it's going to become very difficult to go talk to a VC saying that, okay, there is a passive investor here or a promoter here in the company. So some of those early structures, you have to be really careful if you really want to get VC funding on board. A lot of VC funding also happens very, very quickly, right? We want to meet a company, we like the company, we want to write a check and move on. So it's also based on trust, right? So how much of yourself you actually tell the investor upfront matters a lot.
You're a young entrepreneur. You started your first company when you were still in college. You were at IIT Madras. And the reason I'm bringing all of this up is I want to understand the role that education has when it comes to nurturing and enabling entrepreneurs.
I think you need to find like-minded people around yourself. I think that's very important. So today there are in Tamil Nadu alone, there are 150 odd entrepreneurship cells in every college. There are organizations like NEN, there are co-working spaces, there are organizations like, startup leadership program, all sorts of things going on today, right? So I think today the average student in India is exposed to a lot more. It took me a long while to figure out that, oh, I'm this thing called an entrepreneur, right? So for me, it's like, okay, I'm interested in business. Okay, this is how things work. It's important to understand how cash flow runs. It's important to understand how business models are built. I think that realization came much later when people started talking about it. But I think right now, the scary part is that I also see a lot of students who are very excited being an entrepreneur, and I ask them about, what is the model, and they basically are very clueless about it. So I think you do need to go around and educate yourself, right? Because each one of those things that you don't know is going to cost you something, right? So be the best at it, right?
Speaking of education, I know that mentors play a huge role when it comes to educating yourself. Whether it's a financial mentor, whether it's someone who's hand-holding you, a private equity fund, a VC, someone who's helping you grow your business. How important is it? What advice would you have for our viewers in terms of finding a right fit mentor? How does one go about finding such a mentor? What if you don't have investment by VC or a private equity and therefore don't have such a mentor? What do you do?
Today, finding mentors, I think organizations like ICII, for example, just find somebody whom you want to become like in another 5 years, right? In whatever aspect it might be. Maybe it's stage presence, right? A guy like Girish, for example, from Fresh Desk, when he gets on stage, everybody admires him, right? So I think find people that you admire and basically say, that's the skill set that I want to grow in another 5 years, right? How do I get like an hour of his time every week for whatever reason? And groom that skill set, right? So different people have different things, and I think you need to pick that thing. Over a period of time, I think that mentorship relationship will come to a logical end because you would want to move on to something else. That's fine.
Okay. As I'm winding down this conversation, talk to us and talk to our viewers about how crucial social media is when it comes to helping them build a brand for themselves and as a marketing tool. And what sort of tips or tricks, what is the hygiene that they should keep in mind?
Do keep in mind that whatever you put on social media eventually comes up. So be careful about what you put out there. Apart from that, use the social media. Today, I actively get involved in Quora because it's a great way for me to answer all the questions that are coming in, right? And people are asking, what do I do this? What do I do that? Quora is great. I think, picking up on LinkedIn and just basically connecting to the right folks is great. But I think it's also a great way to basically put your viewpoint across. As an entrepreneur, you want to have a viewpoint. So start writing, right? The best advice that somebody told me was that, from the moment you wake up and for the first 1 hour, your brain is great for either consuming stuff or for creating stuff. And use it for creating stuff rather than basically getting on Twitter and figuring out what else gossip is going on in the world. And it changes your life completely.
A last word in terms of what the next, say, 5 or 10 years is looking like for the Startup Center. Talk to us about. I know initially that you were doing, Chennai-based and a lot of Tamil Nadu-based work, but I understand you could possibly look at going pan-India. So just run us through what your plans are.
So we have a center right now in Chennai. The plan is to basically set up a center in either in Pune or Mumbai and one in Bangalore eventually in the next 2 to 3 years. We're also seriously looking at Singapore because I think there's a lot more relationship that can actually get built from Singapore and India. And considering a lot of, from a business standpoint, while India's regulatory system and support framework basically evolves, Singapore is already there, right? Which means we can kind of leverage that over a period of time. So that's what we're thinking about. We're putting together a fund right now, which is what the process right now is. So we want to start actively investing in companies. And now that the lull period is starting to come in, I think the aggressive funding spree is coming to a little bit slowing down. It's a great time to build amazing companies, right? So we're going back to that.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll feature jumping heights and only 2 feet. Welcome back. You're with us here on The Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight on Bright Sparks, we're featuring 2 companies, jumping heights and only 2 feet. Tonight on Bright Sparks, we're featuring a brand which promises to send a chill down your spine with its range of extreme adventure sports. Jumping Heights lets you experience the thrill of India's highest bungee jump and other activities, which is sure to get you all excited. Libza Manan caught up with the management of Jumping Heights and brought to you insights into the adventure sports market here in India. Take a look.
India's highest bungee jump, extreme giant swing, and Asia's longest flying fox. This is what Jumping Heights, resting at the foothills of the Himalayas in Rishikesh, has to offer adventure enthusiasts who are yearning for a big adrenaline rush and are ready to take the leap of faith.
Well, when it comes to adventure sports, safety is the foremost concern for enthusiasts. And Jumping Heights is into extreme adventure sports, which is highly danger prone. So what sort of safety and health standards does the brand adhere to?
See, we have 2 platforms, one for bungee and giant swing and one for the flying fox. Got it designed and erected by the experts from New Zealand, those who are into the field for very long. And then is the equipment that we use is of the best possible standards, sourced by the globally reputed companies. Then we also have the medical plan in place.
Along with safety, adventure sports also account for a high level of discipline. So Mr. Singh, how has your past experience in the defense sector helped you to maintain the discipline standards for the brand?
That's very right. It was a tough challenge to begin with. Well, we have lived that kind of a disciplined life right from day one we don our uniform, and it was in fact easy to get into the same mode after retirement and do the same as far as our crew is concerned. They didn't take long to come on board with us, and as a, it was primarily disciplining them and ensuring that no single day is taken for granted. As far as we are concerned, every jump is a first jump, and it has to be treated like that at all levels.
In case of any accidents or injuries, what sort of medical facilities are available for the injured?
See, the moment some accident should it take place, it is the crew on the spot. For example, the moment something takes place and they have to be lowered to the receiving area, the people in the receiving area are trained to immediately administer first aid, right? And thereafter it is evacuation to our main place, and that is where by the time the injured person is brought up, we have the doctor at the site to address them, right? And also then as far as his recommendations, we either shift them to by the ambulance vehicles to the hospitals, nearest hospital, and if it happens to be a serious case, even evacuation by air.
To ensure all-round safety of the jumpers, Jumping Heights follow international safety standards of bungee and brings on board a team of certified jump masters from New Zealand, along with a highly experienced and trained crew, who lets you take the giant plunge with ease.
So talk to us about the international qualified jump masters that are associated with the brand, and also about the formal training that they have received.
We have jump masters, who have had experience of operating, launching more than 5,000 safe jumps before they joined us, right? And they don't operate these activities only in New Zealand or in India with us. They travel to places like Switzerland and all, and they have a experience of operating these activities in those countries also.
How about competition in a unique space like this?
Well, there has been no competition till now, right? Because we were the lone players, and you never know that people may be thinking to set up something similar or maybe of the extremer nature in the near future.
And besides being a front runner in the adventure sports market in India, what would you say are some of the other achievements of the brand?
Adventure Tour Operators Association of India, it awarded us last year for being the most innovative adventure sport, ground-based adventure sport in the country. TripAdvisor rates us amongst the 2 things to do while in Rishikesh, and most important is that we would be completing 50,000 safe jumps very soon, maybe in this month itself.
Globally, where do you think does India stand when it comes to adventure sports, and what do you think is actually needed to build a niche in the international market?
Well, that's a very pertinent question, and the present Ministry of Tourism has now made a separate team so that we are able to first address the issues within the house and then also promote the adventure tourism across the world. And this is where this section or the team, it comprises of both the professionals, the tour operators, and also the government agencies. I'm very confident that in maybe years to come, we would make a big headway as far as the extreme adventure tourism in the country is concerned.
With an aim to launch its next zone in Goa, Jumping Heights has some well-planned strategies in place for the brand's diversification, which is likely to help the brand in ruling the Indian market and build a competitive edge in the global adventure sports space.
Giving women all over an extra spring in their step is ladies' designer footwear label Only 2 Feet. Pooja Jain caught up with the company's founder and slipped into a pair herself to assess how handcrafted shoes that prioritize comfort alongside fashion can make for a winning combination.
Finding a well-made, well-designed and well-fitted shoe can pose a challenge for any woman. Only 2 Feet is a new age brand that's addressing the dilemma with its line of ladies' designer footwear. We caught up with shoe entrepreneur and connoisseur Kavita Sharma and walked through her workshop to grasp her knack for ideating iconic shoes that look good and feel great.
You formerly studied footwear design abroad and have since returned to India as a shoe entrepreneur. So what's your perspective on the unique plus points and perhaps pain points of manufacturing designer footwear in this country?
I've learned handmade shoe manufacturing as well as shoe designing in Italy and in London. So when I came back 2 years ago and decided to launch Only 2 Feet, I was always comparing and I really didn't know what to expect. But the good news is that definitely the advantages far exceed the disadvantages of manufacturing in India. The advantages, of course, is the fact that you're working with people from your own culture. So they understand the Indian woman's needs and wants, and they understand the trends. They also understand the Indian woman's foot anatomy very well. And what's good is also the turnaround times. At Only 2 Feet, we're getting into bespoke shoes in a big way. And with manufacturing here, we can turn it around even in a week's time. If you're not importing, you don't have import duties, so you can pass those cost advantages on to your client and you can give them more value for money. So those are the advantages. And as far as the disadvantages are concerned, also there are many. One is, of course, dealing with labor can be a little cumbersome because timelines and things like that. Quality control is a bit of an issue here. Then that's something that I personally monitor, and I understand where we lack, what are the disadvantages. So I keenly follow it with my karigars and ensure that whatever the disadvantages are, or whatever the things we're not good at, or maybe the lack of infrastructure, those are more than made up.
Ladies' designer shoes seem to be this combination of handcrafted artistry on the one hand and machine-driven modernization on the other. What's the key to striking the right balance?
When you know how a shoe is manufactured, and you've done it yourself with your own hands, you will know that which parts of that process are best done by hand and for which you cannot do without the machinery. Okay, of course, machinery is an added bonus because what it does is it does quality control, especially when you're doing mass-produced shoes. When you're working with skilled artisans who know what they're doing, then definitely they can do what the machines can do and better. Right from cutting the patterns, to lasting the shoe, to the stitching, to the heel fixing, and all of that is done by hand.
Designer footwear is always considered to be of the highest quality, but is not always perceived as particularly wearable or versatile. How do you tackle that challenge at only 2 feet?
I'm very clear about the fact that while my shoes will be stylish and on trend, that'll never happen at the cost of comfort. So I'm not designing for magazine covers. I'm not designing only for the runway. I'm designing for the everyday woman. So that is something that we're very, very cognizant of. And when we design and when we manufacture, we follow the highest quality of manufacturing standard. And as far as style is concerned, I think you can be stylish. We work with different kinds of leathers, different colors, different embellishments to make the shoes more stylish. We go for style, but not at the cost of comfort.
As a pure online player, you've made special attempts to personalize the packaging and the presentation of your shoes. What impact are you looking to generate when a customer ultimately receives a delivery at their doorstep?
When I, in fact, thought of the brand a few years ago, I was very clear that when I launched my own label, it will be the entire experience of shoe buying and not just receiving the shoe. And also, it comes from personal experience. I remember shopping for shoes at high street brands where you pay a reasonable amount for shoes and they don't even give you a dust bag. So right from dust bags to this really customized, pretty tissue paper that sort of wraps everything around it. We have an extra heel tip that goes with every shoe. So in case you end up damaging, the heel tip, you have a ready-made heel tip. And we have a little personalized postcard that goes with every shoe, which has a quirky shoe coat. And of course, the box is really pretty, the bag is really pretty. So when it comes to your doorstep, it's really like a present from you to you, right? And the response has been fabulous.
Only 2 Feet seems to have grown well beyond a shopping destination for shoe lovers. It's where one can master the craft of shopping for shoes, or pick up pointers on extending the shelf life of shoes. What's next for the brand? What direction are you looking to grow the company in the future?
For me, it's not just shoes. It's really a passion for me. And I wanted the Only 2 Feet website to not just be an e-tailing website or a blog. I wanted to be like this one-stop destination for anything and everything to do with shoes. And that was my intention. So right from shoe care to the must-haves in the closet, to celebrity shoe spotting, and for the trends of the year, all of that you can find on the website. And that is something that I continue to do. As far as our future plans are concerned, we're launching a studio very soon in Mumbai, which we hopefully in a few years maybe take it to other destinations as well. And that'll be not just a store for our current collection and our future collections, but it'll also be a great destination for bespoke shoemaking. So women can just walk in and get the shoes of their dreams designed.
For Only 2 Feet, the secret to satisfying shoe cravings lies in catering to the customer's wish list. The brand has stayed true to its core competencies and carved out a niche for itself with a hands-on design philosophy that delights women from all walks of life.
Well, with that, we're completely out of time in this episode of The Leaders of Tomorrow. We'd love to hear from you. So if there's anything that you want to tell us, if there's any feedback, do get in touch at leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com. Reach us on social media using the hashtag LOT. You can tweet at me personally at Sunanda_J or call us on the number flashing on your screen. We promise to have all your questions answered. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.